जो मैं दिखता हूँ वो मैं हूँ नहीं, और जो मैं हूँ उसके लिए देखने की आवश्यकता ही नहीं.
Lord Krishna is considered a supreme educator on love through his stories. Devotees have grappled with how Krishna approaches various relationships, particularly his, quote, romantic interactions with the gopis and his wives. And people have often asked themselves, everyone loves him, but who does he love the most? Radha might come to mind first, which is fair. Radha and Krishna's names are often taken together. They're worshipped side by side, and Radha is almost always a central character in depictions of his life. She's also given her own vocabulary, such as Ahladini Shakti, Krishna's joy-bestowing power. Why wouldn't we think of her as the favorite? What's the harm? But what about Rukmini, his first wife? Someone who loved him from afar and wrote him a letter pleading with him to help her escape from a forced engagement. She's also often worshipped beside him, particularly in Maharashtra, where he's called Vitthal and she's called Rakumai. But what about Satyabhama, someone who accompanied him to a battle with a demon, and he gifted a parijat tree? Of course, these women are all considered forms of his eternal consort, the goddess Lakshmi, which renders the idea of favoritism for one of them pretty ridiculous. But that's actually not my point. Let's take a step back. What is a favorite? A favorite is a preference, a belief that one entity or person stands apart from the rest. Human beings develop preferences for things and people all the time. We might say, chocolate is my favorite kind of candy. Hermione is my favorite character in the Harry Potter series. Churi Jo Kanke is the best song from Falguni Pathak. Anything like that. This is my friend, and this is my best friend. I love this person more than I love anyone else. I choose to be with them over being with others. Human preferences for certain people over others shape interpersonal dynamics, conflict, the ups and downs of relationships, and our journeys towards self-love and contentment. In other words, the existence of human preferences and opinions is normal and integral to the play, particularly in the fourth age where we live now. But suggesting that Krishna, or any god for that matter, has preferences for certain people over others prevents us from recognizing who he really is and his state. To have a preference or favorite, one must experience both ego and duality, meaning identify with the body and differentiate one person from another person, one thing from another thing. God is aware of all duality but experiences samadhi, equality consciousness. Everyone is equally his own self. No person is more his own self than another person. That might be hard to believe at first, but the more you think about it, the more sense it will make. There are so many shows and films depicting Krishna's relationships with others, and it can be tempting to get lost in the bliss of watching it and accept his behavior at face value. But that can lead us to misinterpret this behavior. It might look like he's giving special attention to certain people, but it's not true. We're only following a few characters, so we can only see a handful of his interactions. Also, with God, most things are not what they seem. God is a perfect actor with 5 functions: creation, maintenance, destruction, concealment, and grace. Grace, or anugraha, is the most mysterious or inscrutable of the 5. God can act angry, sad, happy, or anything in between, but his inner state remains unchanged. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "Thus think the ignorant, that I, the unmanifest, have become man. They do not know my nature, that is one with Brahman, changeless, superhuman. Veiled in my Maya, I am not shown to many. How shall this world, bewildered by delusion, recognize me, who am not born and change not? I know all beings, Arjun, past, present, and to come, but no one knows me." Watching spiritual shows can be a great practice to help us think about God more concretely, but it's most useful when we have the right attitude. Narad's Bhakti Sutras, the Bhagavad Gita, and writings by Swami Vivekananda contain statements and descriptions that explore the nuances of Bhakti Yoga. Narada explains several common ways that a devotee might choose to perceive God: as a child, friend, brother, master, and beloved. These relationships engender familiarity, thereby making it easier to approach and focus on God. In his commentary, Swami Prabhavananda emphasizes the beauty of this last relationship, seeing God as a beloved, alluding to its madhur nature. He writes, "In this sweet representation, we are all women. There is but one man, and that is he, our beloved." There's a famous story where Mirabai visits Sanatan Goswami, who was living in Vrindavan at the time, and refused to see her, saying he would never look upon a woman. Mira remarks, "Who but Krishna is a man? Does Jiva Goswami not see himself as a gopi, a woman, in this holy place?" Hearing this, Goswami emerges and pays his respects, likely saying, "You're right." The saint Chaitanya Mahaprabhu encouraged male devotees to adopt the attitude of a gopi to access the uniquely sublime experience of loving Krishna as a beloved. In the book Sri Chaitanya Charitamrit, the author writes, "Each class of devotees who cherish Krishna with feelings of servitude, companionship, parental love, and amorous love consider their own sentiment as superior to those of the rest. If, however, a neutral comparison is made, amorous love has a sweetness more exquisite than those of the others. In the Natyashastra, Shringar or romance is considered an emotion or ras all by itself. Indian classical dances that draw upon the Shringar ras are typically about Krishna and all the emotions women feel for him. Filmmakers have often referenced or borrowed elements from divine love stories to help elevate the bhav and depth of worldly love stories. But irrespective of the category of relationship, the underlying principles governing God's interactions remain the same. 1. The devotee is in total control. They decide the dynamic between them and God, and he simply obeys. In Canto 9, Chapter 4 of the Bhagavatam, Krishna says, "I love my devotees, and I am a willing slave in my love. Indeed, I am not at all independent." It's a fascinating irony that God is all-powerful, yet he kneels before his devotees, awaiting their command. He becomes a son, brother, friend, king, guru, lover, and husband to those who want that. 2. The devotee dictates the intensity of their relationship to God. The phrase, "as you sow, so shall you reap," is found in the Bible, but it's also a cogent way of describing the law of karma. This law is typically thought of concerning good and bad actions and the corresponding consequences, but it can also apply to bhakti. The amount of effort a devotee makes cultivating their devotion will be responded to by God or the Guru in kind. This is due to the grace equation. Swami Muktananda said that self-effort and the Guru's grace are like the two wings of a bird. The bird needs both to fly to the goal, meaning liberation, and parabhakti, or supreme devotion. I think he also means that self-effort attracts grace. They go hand in hand. When a person has done enough surrender, God is compelled to go to them. This is quite different from worldly love. Human beings are governed by their own agendas. They often become interested in someone based on their qualities and develop a conscious desire to pursue them as a partner, which is all understandable and appropriate in the world. You know how much I adore worldly love stories, but I want to draw a distinction. God's love is different from human love in that he has no desires, no weaknesses, no needs to fulfill, no knowledge to gain. He is already the embodiment of bliss and love. Therefore, no one can tempt or trap him into love. I try to keep in mind that when he gives attention to someone, it's not based on his desire or personal interest, but the other person's need, longing, and deservedness. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "My face is equal to all creation, loving no one nor hating any. Nevertheless, my devotees dwell within me always." It's another irony. God's love is infinite, yet non-specific. It's not driven or dependent on any of our qualities. It's just there for those who want it. Everything he does is grace. Nothing falls outside of that. No one is at an advantage or disadvantage with him, and I find that really uplifting. Keeping the fifth function in mind when we read his stories or watch depictions of him on screen is quite helpful in that it keeps us tethered to who he really is.
हमारे प्रेम का ऋण है आप पर, जिसे आप कभी नहीं उतार सकते।
क्यों नहीं उतार सकते?
क्योंकि आपको तो मोह का बंधन है ही नहीं। ना किसी से मोह करते हो, ना किसी से प्रेम। इसीलिए प्रेम जो एक गहरी पीड़ा है, उसका आपको पता ही नहीं।
Book 10, Chapter 60 of the Bhagavad Purana begins like this. Every one of the queens of Krishna was devotedly attached to him from the bottom of her heart. and every one of them was confident that she was the only beloved most queen. Rukmini is sitting in her room one day, and Krishna visits her, smilingly knowing that she also harbors the belief that she's the favorite. He says, "O princess, you were desired and sought after by rulers of the earth, whose affluence and power equaled that of the divine protectors of worlds. Why did you reject Shishupal and others who were mad with love for you? Why did you select this family? We are have-nots, and are generally dear to people who are poor and possess nothing. Marriage and friendship are meant to be between equals. Without ascertaining the real situation, we, who are devoid of all qualities and are praised for nothing by beggars, have been selected by you due to your lack of foresight." Rukmini trembles, her eyes prick with tears. Why is he saying this? She thinks. Is he leaving me now? And then she understands. She says, "You are the soul of the universe. You are ever willing to bestow your soul upon your votaries. Hence I have chosen you. You revel in your own self, and you do not cherish any extraordinary outlook, such as any special love for me. May my love to your feet be constant. When, for the advancement of the world, you look at me, that itself is the highest grace on me." He hugs her and holds her face, saying, "Rukmini, that was all in jest. It is just with the desire of hearing your retort that I spoke thus. I understand you. Whatever blessings you seek from me shall always be fulfilled, as you are absolutely devoted to me. But blessings sought from me lead to freedom from desires." Shuka continues, "In the same way, the omnipresent Lord, the preceptor of the universe, was present severally in the mansions of all other queens as its master, and simultaneously carried out all the duties prescribed for householders." In Book 10, Chapter 29 of the Bhagavad Purana, the gopis are with Krishna late one night in the forest, and each of them silently believes she's the most beautiful and his favorite. In that moment, he disappears, and the women are distraught. "Where is he? Where did he go?" they cry. They search everywhere to no avail, eventually finding his footprints. The gopis follow them until they reach one of their friends, sitting on the ground, weeping. In retrospect, people have considered this gopi Radha. The girl reflects, then turns to her friends. "He walked with me alone, then left me too, because I also fell prey to the belief that he loved me the most." When the gopis relinquish their egocentric thoughts, Krishna reappears, multiplying himself, so each gopi has one of him, and they all start to dance. Krishna multiplying himself in the Raas Leela and in the palace of Dwarka is a metaphor for the fact that he appears to each devotee individually, tailoring what he says and does to their needs in the proper amount. Figures like Radha, Rukmini, and Satyabhama can be worshipped for their goddesshood alone, but doing so deprives us of a deeper truth. It makes us vulnerable to language that suggests that Krishna has favorites and chooses to love certain people because they're inherently special. Perhaps at this point you're less inclined to think that, but it bears repeating that everyone is equally his own self. And this principle doesn't detract from Radha, Rukmini, and Satyabhama's goddesshood. It just highlights that they represent something even more valuable to us: work. They think about Krishna constantly, their minds tuned to him, absorbed in thoughts of him, and that effort attracts grace.
मुझ पे दया करो, ना हमारे गांव आओ और ना मुरली बजाओ।
फिर तो प्रेम करना छोड़ दो।
ये भी तो संभव नहीं है।
फिर ये भी संभव नहीं कि मैं आना छोड़ दूं।
He has no choice but to spend a lot of time with them, give them all his love, outright and out loud, because they deserve it. They've earned that grace. Radha, Rukmini, and Satyabhama not only represent esoteric goddesses, but pinnacles of devotion, whose examples we can directly apply in our lives. They used the same practices that we know today: physical offering, chanting, japa, contemplation, and overall chintan. They teach us that there's nothing stopping us from cultivating our own specific relationship to God, attracting grace, and ultimately reaching our spiritual potential. I hope you take the time to think about these ideas. You might know a lot of them intellectually, but there's a lot to contemplate in it. I definitely will. Good luck with all of your self-efforts and your devotion. Om. Bye.